Good morning, everybody. My name is Janice Gerbrand. We're here today with Professional Development Virtual Group and our guest Ray Kim, and he's going to be talking to us today about blogging for success, advancing your career by blogging. The first thing we're going to do though is run through just a little bit of past news. Today the big news is that registration for this year's summit is open. So it's actually open today on January 21st for Houston. So today is your best pricing option for registration. Coming up, there's going to be a PASS marathon in early February in Spanish. So if Spanish is your language, by all means register for that. As you are joining us today with our professional development virtual group, there are lots of other virtual groups and very interesting webinars happening over the next couple weeks. Here's just a couple examples. Cloud is a busy one, and performance, and we've got a great one, Women in Technology group, a storytelling one that I think I'll be joining as well. And again, it's a good idea to check out the virtual group offerings once in a while to put yourself on the mailing list if you have any interests that have a virtual group. Another fantastic PASS option is the SQL Saturdays. So check those out when they're in your area. It's like a mini summit that's free and in your region. So we're missing the most important one for me, which is March 14th, Victoria, BC, because that's the one that I organize. If you're in the neighborhood, check it out. If you're not already following PASS on Twitter and other social media channels, you should do so and keep in touch with PASS news and other active PASS members. And so again, thank you, Ray, for joining us today. For our attendees, the session will be recorded and posted later. You'll be able to find it by going back to the Professional Development Virtual Group's website. And if you look at our archives, the videos are available there with the archive listings. And if you follow our Twitter account, I will tweet when it has been posted. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to type it into the questions pane. I will see them and not Ray, and we may answer them throughout the webinar, or we may hold them till the end, and I will present the questions to Ray at that time. So again, Ray, thank you very much. I'm going to change the presentation over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me get this going here.
I can see your screen.
Okay.
And I can hear you. So again, thanks everybody for joining, and I'm going to mute myself and let Ray take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to my presentation about blogging, blogging for success, as I call this thing. This is a virtual presentation I'm doing for PASS, and I also opened up the invitation to my coworkers, so I do have a small handful of people here in the room with me. So welcome to those of you who are actually here in person. So anyway, let me take a couple of screens to introduce myself for those of you who do not know who I am. I've been working in technology since well, you can see it right up there on the screen, so it doesn't really matter. I'm currently a data analyst and technical writer. I've been doing SQL Saturday presentations since 2015. I am a member of CASUG, if you really need to know. That stands for Capital Area SQL Server User Group, which is a local SQL user group to the Albany area. I have degrees in computer science and technical communication. If you get to know me, one thing you will learn about me is that I bleed Syracuse orange. A few other things about me that have absolutely nothing to do with work. I am married. My 2 kids have 4 legs and fur. I'm a musician in my spare time. I play 4 different instruments. You can see up there on the screen, those are the instruments I play. I'm a big sports fan. I'm into football, basketball, hockey, baseball. I'm a 2-time fantasy football champion on SQLServerCentral.com. So if you want to come talk to me about sports, come on over and we'll chat. I'll probably talk your ear off. So anyway, real quick, let me go through a quick shameless plug about some other things I have coming up here. First of all, one confirmed talk that I know I'm doing, I will be at SQL Saturday in Rochester, New York on February 29th. There is the link to that if you are interested in that, and if you are in the Rochester area or out in Western New York, come on out. SQL Saturday is always a great time. I'm also signed up to speak at SQL Saturday Chicago. I've not yet heard whether or not I am confirmed to be speaking about that. The deadline for that's passed a few weeks ago, so I'm hoping to hear from them pretty soon. And I just saw in my email box this morning that we have locally a Albany Code Camp on April 25th. Once again, I did submit to that. I won't know for some time whether or not they'll pick me to speak, but it's a good local event for those of you who are here in Eastern New York and in the Albany area. And also in July 25th, we here in Albany, we host our own SQL Saturday on July 25th. We pretty much do this every January. Every July, I'm sorry. We hold it at the SUNY Albany. So again, come on out, good time, check it out. I did sign up to speak, but because it's local and I'm part of the user group that hosts this, I will be at this event regardless of whether or not I'm picked to speak. And once again, if any of you are local and are interested, we have our local user group. We meet over at the Autotask over in East Greenbush. It's the second Monday of every month. If you go to our website, which is up on the screen, we have the schedule up there. I'm the person who maintains the schedules and the announcements on there. So if you want to go check it out, there it is. Any questions about it, anything, feel free to ask me about that. So, alrighty. So you didn't come to hear me talk about shameless plugs or about myself. So let's get right into the presentation. So let's talk about this presentation. Sorry, bear with me for just a minute here. Well, those of you in the room are going to see the GoToMeeting thing. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that, but anyway. So this is not a technology specific presentation. I do talk about blogging. I talk a lot about professional development topics. When it comes to my relationship with PASS and SQL Saturday, the way I describe myself is I am the professor at MIT who teaches English Lit. I talk mainly about professional development topics. I do several presentations. None of them have anything to do with SQL Server. For context purposes, I'm going to assume that we're going to be talking about blogging for professional purposes. This is not to say that if you do a blog about, say, gardening or fitness or whatever, that you can't do anything with the material in this presentation. I am going to keep it to professional topics, only because if we talk about other things, this presentation will take a lot longer than just an hour. So I am basing this presentation mostly on my own personal experience. I started my blog about, I think it's almost 4 years ago now, and I've picked up a lot of tips and tricks from that, and hopefully you will learn a bit about this presentation through that. I will admit, I do not like to lecture. It's kind of hard to do when you're doing a presentation like this. My preferred MO when I'm teaching anything is to sit in a group, have more discussion, and I facilitate the meeting, but that's kind of hard to do in a presentation like this. So if you have any questions, I asked Janice about people online if they have any questions. I told her, well, it depends on the question. If you have anything that comes up, by all means, feel free to ask. Those of you who are here in the room with me, by all means, if you have any questions, feel free to bring them up and ask me. All right. So that being said, let's get started here. Hopefully by the end of the session, you're not going to look like this picture that I have here. We'll talk about what exactly is a blog, why blog. I'll talk a little bit about how I got started with blogging, and we'll talk a little bit about blog providers. Big topic, what do you write about? We will touch on that. We'll talk a little bit about establishing a brand. We'll talk about some of the benefits of blogging, and we'll talk about potential issues. And by the way, those of you who were on Mike Hayes' virtual presentation about blogging a couple of weeks ago, by the way, Mike, I am assuming you are on the line. How you doing? He gave me a lot of shout outs a couple of weeks ago when he did his presentation, and I will make sure that I reciprocate. Mike gave a very good presentation. His session is recorded, so if anybody wants to go check out the recording of his session, go to profdev.pass.org, go to meeting archive, and his session will be on there. If you are on his session, I will warn you in advance that you will likely see a lot of overlap between his session and mine. So we are probably going to be talking about a bunch about the same things, and we'll be talking about a few different things, but by all means, go check out his session, and whatever I don't cover, maybe he'll cover it. We'll see how it goes. So, all right, starting with a little bit of a discussion. I can do this with the people in the room. It's kind of hard to do the everybody who's online. But for those of you in the room, show of hands, how many currently have a blog? Nobody has their hands up. Interesting. Why are you interested in starting one? I'll ask you guys. Anybody?
And just FYI, a few people have raised their hands in the attendees.
Okay.
There was at least 2 hands went up.
Okay. So again, this is kind of hard for a virtual presentation, but for those of you in the room, why are you interested in starting a blog? Anybody? Anybody? I see a lot of faces just looking at me with funny faces, so
At
that's
least
all right.
one attendee has a personal blog.
Okay.
And another, let me just pop this out. I can read it to you. To learn more. Another person is doing it to advance their career.
Okay.
John says it holds him to task because it's forcing him to learn more.
Okay.
And BJ is doing it to share tech knowledge. Oh my goodness, look at all these answers.
Okay, I'm not going to get through all things. Not going to get through all these right now, but just wanted to get a small sampling. I will say that those answers I've heard so far are all great reasons. And one of the best reasons I think for starting a blog is not just to share knowledge, but to learn stuff yourself. I think if you don't know about a topic, you're trying to learn more about a topic, that's one of the best reasons to start a blog. We'll touch on that a little more as we get through this. And what are you hoping to get out of a blog? Again, I'm going to go through that. Well, I'll skip over this for now. Like I said, only because it's kind of hard to do in a virtual presentation. But these are all questions that I think are good to keep in your mind when you are thinking about why you want to start or get going with a blog. So let me start by talking a little bit about what blogging is. Let's start with the word blog in and of itself. In case you didn't know, a little piece of trivia is blog is actually short for weblog. Kind of similar to the word droid. Droid is short for Android. This is kind of the same principle here. And I wanted to find a dictionary definition of what a blog was. So I found this on Wikipedia, which I think actually pretty much describes it pretty well. A discussion or diary type entries, posts. So why blog? Lots of reasons you might want to start one. Post your thoughts. One of the biggest things I blog about is every now and then I will have a thought come up in the back of my mind saying, I think that would be a good idea, and I think people get a lot out of that. So more often than not, I will share thoughts about that, stuff that's on my mind. Ask questions and learn new things. One of the biggest reasons and most underappreciated, I think, reasons to blog is I don't know about something and I'm trying to learn this. So here's what I'm trying to learn. And I will post articles about that. Say, a while back, I actually posted stuff about BI, business intelligence. Paresh runs the Boston BI user group, and he tried to get me to speak for the BI SQL Saturday about that. And I remember telling Paresh, the only thing I know about BI is how to spell it. So I started a few articles about that saying, hey, this is what I know about BI. This is what I'm learning. Spark ideas and or discussion. A blog is actually interactive. It's interactive in the way that there is a space for comments and people leave comments and people respond back. Brag about your accomplishments. Let's say, hopefully nobody in the room's doing this, but if you're looking for a job, getting your resume out there, um, you can, let's say, I don't know, just to throw an example out, hey, I just got a full scholarship to Harvard, or I was accepted to speak at an event, SQL Saturday, whatever. Feel free to toot your own horn. A blog is a great place to do that, and recruiters love seeing that sort of thing on your blog. It's a great place to store stuff like that, to talk about stuff like that. One of the great things I've heard is it's on your own online Google, your own online reference notes. A friend of mine, Matt Cushing, who is also a SQL Saturday speaker, once said that he once looked up information on a problem that he was trying to solve. I forgot exactly what it was. So he did a Google search for it. A link came up, and when he went to the link, he was very surprised that it was linked to his own blog. And it was an article that he had written like a year or two earlier that he had forgotten all about. And in doing so, he actually managed to answer his own question. So a blog is great for your own reference notes. Help other people. I'll say this, one of my great passions and one of the great big reasons why I do SQL Saturday is I love helping other people. And there's a lot of the time I feel like what I write about in a blog article will help other people out. So I'll post various topics out there saying, you know what, I think other people will get a lot out of this, and that'll go along with a lot of the thoughts that I have. Networking, and again, I hesitate to write this, to say this in a room full of coworkers, but finding other employment. Blogging is a great networking tool. There are a lot of people I meet and have made friends with on the SQL Saturday circuit, and a lot of them have their own blogs. I am connected to many of them, and it's a form of networking. Like I said, it's interactive, and you get to see what other people think and write about and their expertise, and it's a great place to get all that information. So let's talk a little bit about how I got started. I've been doing SQL Saturday presentations about four and a half years now, and I originally wanted to start my blog to supplement those presentations. A couple of weeks ago, like I said, Mike Hayes did his own presentation about blogging. Well, there he is. I attended his presentation at SQL Saturday about blogging. And by the way, Mike, once again, a great presentation a couple of weeks ago. By all means, go check out his recording. And also that presentation was another fellow, James Sarah, who is another SQL Saturday presenter, and he had an article about enhancing your career and about blogging. And I credit these two guys for helping me get started on starting my own blog. I said to myself, okay, you know what? I want to start my own blog. So I went out, I pretty much just dove into it, and I'll actually touch on that a little bit in about a screen, on a later screen here. I went out and created a account on WordPress.com. Very easy to set up, pretty much runs right out of the box. And well, ever since I started that account, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but May 24, 2016, I wrote my very first blog article. It wasn't much. It was just, greetings, welcome. This is me. This is what I'm going to write about, this, that, and the other thing. Ever since that article, I've written over 300 articles and counting. Most of the time, I'll just write about, whatever pops in my head that I think is helpful, or something that's on my mind, or something I'm trying to learn. I've spoken at dozens of SQL Saturdays, few user group meetings. This past November was a nice feather in my cap. I got to speak at Past Summit. If you're not familiar with Past Summit, it's been described as the Super Bowl of SQL Saturdays. So that was a great event, great feather in my cap. Janice, who is moderating this event, I got to meet her for the first time at this event, and I got to meet all sorts of people all over the country and all over the world, actually. Pass has even referenced a few of my articles in their newsletter. which I thought was pretty neat. A little more exposure there. My network has expanded. I've had people here at work saying, "Hey, you know what? We recognize what you're doing a great job. You know, keep up the good work." This could be a good or a bad thing. Recruiters won't leave me alone. Depends on when or not you're looking, but it also depends on when or not you're networking. I do have a lot of friends who are recruiters, and it's good for networking purposes. And one passive benefit I've noticed, I've noticed that my confidence has gotten better ever since I've been blogging. I feel a lot better about a lot of the things that I do here in the office and also with what I do professionally. So, all right, so let's talk about getting started. So, okay, I want to start a blog. How do I begin? Let's start with picking a platform. There are a number of platforms out there that you can use. I used to have an account on LiveJournal. I don't know if it's still active or not. I don't really refer to that because I wrote about a lot of personal things, things that are really a lot more appropriate for a forum such as um, Facebook. So I don't really use that anymore. I do currently have an account on WordPress.com for my blog. I keep my WordPress and my Facebook separate. I do that purposely. I do not link the two. Well, that's not entirely true. I do post my blog articles to Facebook. It's almost akin for me to separating my work and my home life, if you will. That's just me personally. Picking a platform that'll work for you. I will confess this is where I made a little bit of a mistake because I did not do my homework first. I pretty much a lot of my friends were on WordPress.com, and it seemed to work for them. So I said, you know, well, maybe it'll work for me. I'll give this a shot and see how it works. I personally am pretty happy with it. I mean, you can pretty much use it right out of the box. But if you're trying to start your own, I encourage you to do your homework. For example, there is a difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com. WordPress.org is more of an open source platform, if you will. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, mostly because I don't really play with it, so I don't know what it's capable of doing. But I guess you can do more, if you will. What's the word I'm looking for here? Fixing up for what you want to do with it and whatever. Consider whether you want to do a free or a paid account. When Mike did this presentation a couple of weeks ago, he talked about I paid such and such number of dollars to start this account and do this, that, and the other thing. Now, I know Mike does a lot more with technical topics and does a lot more to sell himself and his wares on his blog. I personally use the free account. That works for me just fine. Granted, if you do have a paid account, you'll probably be able to do a lot more with it. Maybe you'll have more storage space, more features. Again, it's up to you. I encourage you to do your homework with it. Do a little digging into platforms and see what works for you. Let's talk a little bit about blog functions and features. Again, a blog is interactive. Blog articles have the ability to leave comments so that people can give you feedback and leave comments for you. WordPress.com, and I'm assuming other platforms have this function as well, a reblog function where basically you can repost something you wrote before. Article drafts, I'll touch on that a little bit more in a later slide. Stats and analytics, those of you who have websites or webmasters, maybe you'll use Google Analytics. WordPress.com does have an analytics section. It's kind of rudimentary, doesn't really go in depth, but it'll give you a general idea of how many people visit your blog, visitor stats, what people look at, spam filters. One of the things, and I'll touch on this a little more later, but there are a lot of trolls out there and a lot of bots, and you will get spam on your on your blog. That's one of the things that I do in terms of my regular maintenance for keeping this thing up and maintaining it. Templates, ability to personalize your blog. I'm not going to touch this in depth here, mainly for time constraints, but if you have any web expertise and design expertise, maybe you can touch up your blog to make it reflect you and your personality and whatever you're writing about and building your own brand. You also have the ability to post your articles on other sites. One of the things that I do is whenever I post an article, it automatically posts to my LinkedIn account, my Twitter account. It used to automatically post to Facebook. It doesn't really do that anymore, but there is a function that does let you post to Facebook, so I do that as well. And if you have other social media platforms, you can mostly do those as well. So how are we doing so far? Anybody in the room? Any questions so far? Anybody? Anything?
No active questions at this point.
Alrighty. Okay, so here's the $1,000,000 question that I'm sure everybody writing a blog has. So what should I write about? Again, we're talking mainly about a professional blog. This is not to say you can not blog about anything else, but the short answer is pretty much anything you want. Very vague answer, I realize that. So we're going to talk about this a little more. The longer answer. Some of the questions I ask myself when I'm coming up with articles are, you can read for yourself what I have up in the slide, but stuff that's on my mind, stuff that I'm trying to learn, things that I'm passionate about, things I'd like to share, any expertise, things that I've accomplished, and any announcements I have. Like I said, I speak frequently at SQL Saturdays, so anytime I'm speaking at one, I'll post those up to my blog. And one of the questions I always ask myself is, going back to the root of why I started a blog, is why do I want a blog? Basic question, but again, it might help you out quite a bit when you're trying to figure out what you want to put into a blog article. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in the later slide here. Okay, are there any topics I should tackle or avoid? Again, there are really, to be perfectly honest with you, there are really no rules, if you will, for blogging. This is more of a guideline, if you will, than hard, solid rules. But since we're talking about writing for professional reasons or about professional topics, here are some of the guidelines that I personally do. So any topics to tackle or avoid, it depends. Again, purpose of your blog, who your audience is. Now, this is something that I don't think a lot of people really appreciate when you're writing, is considering who are you writing this for. I have many years of technical writing experience, and one of the biggest things I think about when I'm writing a document is who's going to be reading this document. And more often than not, that pretty much drives my document. That drives how I write my document, and it also drives what I put in my blog articles. Your expertise, what do or don't you know? What do you expect to gain, or what can you lose? And I'll get into that a little bit more here. If you're writing about professional topics, do write about things that you're passionate about, something that would interest your target audience. Again, there it is, knowing who you're writing for. Things that you either accomplish or are trying to learn. Things that I try to avoid with professional topics: politics, religion, or anything that's controversial, divisive. Again, I'm going to get into this a little more, all of this a little more. Anything personal, unless it's relevant to your topic. Say, for example, oh my God, my cat died. I don't really, nobody really wants to hear about that. However, at the same time, you might come up with, you know what, I had this horrifying experience, but here's what I learned professionally about that experience. Maybe you can spin it that way. I try to avoid getting into emotional rants, foul language. Again, I see a lot of four-letter words on some other blogs. I personally try to avoid doing that. Some general things that I will write about is, again, upcoming events, knowledge transfer, like I said, your own personal Google, lessons learned. Um, hey, listen, I'm trying to learn about BI, but I don't know anything about it, so here's what I'm trying to learn. That's great fodder. Things like that are great fodder for blog articles. Something I want to remember or retain. I realize I'm probably repeating myself with a lot of these points. Things that I accomplish, activities, or occasionally I will write about my extracurricular activities. Like I said, I'm a musician on the side, and I like going to ball games. And okay, granted, they're not necessarily professional topics, but there are times where, you know what, I don't think my audience would mind if I wrote about this a little bit. Few reasons for that. Number one, this is not to say that you won't learn anything professionally from extracurricular items that you post. And number two, it shows your audience that, hey, listen, guys, I'm a person. I have interests. I'm not working 24/7, so it kind of shows off that you have a life outside of work. Some of the specific things I talk about, like I said, I'm really big on technical writing and communication, so I talk a lot about those kind of topics. Like I said, most of what I talk about, most of my SQL Saturday topics are about professional development. A lot of the other blogs I follow talk specifically about topics like SQL Server. There are a lot of .NET blogs out there, and it depends on what your interests are. Technical topics, mostly UI, UX, SQL, or maybe a few others. Extracurriculars, I'll talk a lot about music. I I realize I look more like a couch potato than an athlete, but I do CrossFit. I'm not very good at it, but again, I'll talk about that once in a while. Think life and work lessons, things I learn, accomplishments, thoughts and opinions. Every now and then, I'll have this great thought in the back of my mind. Oh my God, I just had this revelation about fill in the blank right there, and I'll write a few notes down, and I'll talk about writing down notes in a little bit. Here's some things I avoid. Again, politics and religion for me are verboten. I absolutely do not talk about those at all. I don't even like talking about those on my Facebook. They're largely inappropriate for the things that I want to write about. Again, there are really no rules. I mean, if you have a blog that's about politics or religion, knock yourself out. But if you're trying to write about professional topics, I generally would avoid them. I avoid things that are just outright untrue, not factual. I do make the attempts to check my sources and whatnot to make sure that anything I post is true, is factual. If I do post anything that is not true, it is usually inadvertent. Again, a blog is interactive, so if something is not true, anybody can comment and say, hey, listen, this is not true, and I'll be like, okay, I will make any corrections or whatever. Maybe I'll delete the article if it's not appropriate. Anything offensive, again, I want people to come in and read my blog. I don't want to drive them away. I will confess to occasionally being a little self-deprecating. I'll make a comment like, as my regular readers, both of you know. But anyway, rants, tirades, getting out of my system. I avoid anything that involves selling something unless it's about, things that I am presenting or talks that I have coming up or events I have coming up. Money-making schemes, again, that's not what I am about. If that's what your blog is about, knock yourself out. Anything personal or anything qualifies as TMI. I don't think anybody needs to know about. Okay, I'm not going to get into it here. I don't think anybody really wants to hear about that. Now, identifying information. Anytime I'll put on my tech writer's hat a little bit here, but anytime I have any information about, let's say, in-house data or even a graphic or a screenshot, I'll go through great pains to alter it to make sure that no information is getting out. Especially in this day of data security, that's really a big deal. And by the way, there are lots of great articles on data security. Talk to Steve Jones, who is the moderator for SQLServerCentral.com, writes a lot of articles about data security. Also, another guy is Greg Moore, who's actually a friend of mine and is the leader for the local SQL user group. He is also very big in data security. Lots of great resources for that out there. But anyway, I digress. Basically, when it comes to blogging, my basic rule of thumb is if I don't want my boss, past, present, or future, the general public, or my mother to see it, I don't post about it. Okay, how are we doing so far? Any questions so far? Janice, any questions online there? Or?
No active questions. Nope.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about establishing your brand. One of the things that would be probably very helpful in trying to figure out what to do with your own blog is, okay, who am I? What kind of brand do I want to sell, if you will? If you see these names, what pops into your head? Usually, in most cases, immediately you're going to see something about Facebook or media or IT or food or whatever. You see any of these names and immediately, oh, that's their brand. So trying to figure out your own brand will probably go a long way in establishing what you're going to do with your own blog. Are you going to write about gardening or working out or music, or are you going to write about databases or DevOps or programming or whatever? There's really no shortage of things that you can write about. But when people look at you and say, okay, you blog about whatever, what is the whatever? And it establishes yourself as a brand and it'll help guide what you write. For me personally, I write about, again, professional development topics. I write a lot about technical communication and writing and documentation. I write about some design topics. Since I do have a web development background, I'll write about that. I'll write about UI, UX. And for me personally, and this, you might experience the same thing if you're blogging, your brand may not be apparent right away. I will readily confess that there's a part of me that's still trying to figure out what my brand exactly is. But as I said at the very beginning of this presentation, like I said, I'm the professor at MIT who teaches English Lit. I deal a lot with technical audiences, but I don't necessarily talk about technical things. It's stuff that may not necessarily be hardcore technical, but I think the stuff that I talk about and try to teach is stuff that I think is important to technical audiences. It's not necessarily good to be hardcore talking about DevOps 24/7. It's good to have be well-rounded and to have a little bit good information about various different things, and that's why I do what I do, and that's what I write about. And by the way, you'll be very surprised at how many different things that I find to write about. I know I surprise myself constantly. All right, so here's some writing tips that I've come up with when it comes to blogging. Be clear and concise. One failing among a lot of technical people who try to write technical topics is they will bog people down in detail. One of the most common quotes that I have, and this is actually a quote that a boss from my previous job used to tell me all the time, is don't tell me how to build a clock, just tell me what time it is. A lot of people try to get too much into detail. Keep it high level, and if people want more detail, they'll ask about it later. You can get into later on. Now, English is my primary language. I speak a little bit of German, but not a lot. Not much more than I learned in school. So I will say this: good grammar is helpful, not necessarily required. Um, I will be the first to admit that I am a bit of a grammar snob. I often tell people I am one of those people who will be correcting your grammar in the back of my head, but that said, do not let that be an impediment to your own writing. Um, if you don't write that well, that actually might be one of the best reasons to write a blog. Um, a blog is a great place to practice your writing. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. If you really want to get better with um, your English skills, one book I highly recommend is by E.B. White and by Strunk and White is The Elements of Style. You can order that off of Amazon or whatever, but it's one of the go-to resources for a lot of writers if they want to improve their writing skills. One of the things I do a lot is read books, read other blogs, and try to emulate them. One of my favorite authors is Stephen King. Not so much. I'm not into horror. I'm into specifically Stephen King, and one of the things I love about him is the level of detail and descriptiveness that he gets into, and it's a level that I like to emulate. So find a writer, try to copy from him, or as somebody once said, good writers copy, great writers steal. Read other blogs and see what they're like and try to emulate them. Mike, I know you're on the line. He writes a great blog about SQL topics. Go check that out. And if you're really iffy about your work, I mean, don't be afraid to ask someone else to review it. Read other blogs, write and then rewrite. Mike, in his presentation a couple of weeks ago, mentioned that he will sit down on a Sunday morning and he will really think about what he writes and he will write his article. This is one area where, sorry, Mike, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here because he likes to sit down and really think about what he writes. Show of hands in the room. Have any of you ever seen the movie Finding Forrester? Nobody's seen it? Okay, Sean Connery, Rob Brown. And one of the scenes in the movie, Sean Connery's character, who is a reclusive writer, says, "Don't think, just write. That comes later." So he'll sit there. Well, in the movie they use typewriters, but your word processor, just write. Whatever's on your mind, just write. So write your draft. You can always go through it later and edit and change stuff. But for your, as Connery's character said, your first draft comes from the heart, and your head comes later. You'll always have time to edit later. Save your drafts. One of the neat things about WordPress.com is that you can write draft articles. Nobody ever has to see them. Last I checked, I had over 100 articles that were in draft. Thoughts I'd written down, but have yet to see the light of day. Maybe I'll come up with ideas for those. Good titles. If you come up with a good title for your article, the article will most likely write itself. Have a good ending. How do you wind it up? One of the things I try to make sure I do when I'm writing my articles is, okay, what's a good summary or what's a good closing for this thing? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Self-explanatory, I think. If you have a decent illustration, and one of the things that Mike mentioned in his presentation a couple weeks ago is people like to see pictures. And if you have a lot of illustrations in your article, it'll probably draw more people to it. Once again, to reiterate it, don't overthink it, just write. That said, be tactful. Going back to the list of things about what I do include and what I don't include. You don't want to offend people. You want to bring people to it. You don't want to drive people away. You don't want to divide people. One of the things I've gotten into the habit of doing lately is I've gotten into the habit of including hashtags in my titles. And the reason why I do that is, like I said, my blog articles automatically post to my LinkedIn account, and they post to my Twitter account, and also there is an option there where it also posts to my my Facebook account. If you include hashtags in the title, those will carry over as well. So therefore, if you have them in your title, then boom, they will already exist right there in your Twitter account. Categorize and tag your articles. If you are a web developer or webmaster, you probably know all about the search engine optimization, SEO. So tagging is good for SEO purposes. Again, post to other media, Facebook, LinkedIn. List your blog URL where it's possible and appropriate. I mean, you have a product. Your blog is a product, and you want to sell it to people. So include it in places like, say, if you have business cards, included there. By the way, I have another session that I do about networking. I'm not going to get into that here. That goes outside the scope of this discussion. But if you do anything about networking, by all means, it's a great networking tool. If, again, hopefully this is not for anybody in here, but if you have a resume and you're looking for job opportunities, list your URL prominently in your resume. Put it up at the very top of your resume, along with your name, your address, your phone number, your contact info. Email signatures. Post your blog address in your email signature. You send emails out, people will see the signature. If you have a business website, make sure you include a link to your blog from that website. All right. So here's some issues that you need to be aware of. I'm going to talk about this at a high level. If you want any more information about a lot of this in detail, again, I'm going to refer you back to Mike's presentation recording from a couple of weeks ago. But of course, one of the big issues you need to be aware of is spam. Every now and then, I will check my spam filter, and there will be a few things in there that I'll delete. If you have most blog articles will have the ability to comment, so you'll see a lot of trolls and bots out there that'll automatically post things that are just trash and have absolutely nothing to do with the content in your blog. So check your spam filter and make sure you keep that out. Again, there are going to be trolls out there who all they do is they just trash whatever you say and do. I'm sure anybody with a social media account, especially Facebook, I'm sure you're all familiar with those. Copyright issues. Be careful about what you take off of the web and use. I will confess that I do borrow a lot of stuff from my own articles. I try to make an added effort to make sure that I use things that are, say, public domain, or if I do use stuff that might have a copyright or might belong to other people, at the very least, I either try to include a link to the original source where I got it, or I try to cite my source. I just had another thought, and my mind just went blank. Sorry about that, folks. They'll probably come to me later, for all I know. But anyway, yeah, I remember that. I spoke a little while ago about data integrity and data security. That's something you should be aware of. Oh, there it is right there. I forgot that. Data security is a big deal when you're posting about blog articles rather. Privacy, not just your own. How many times have you taken pictures of, say, building addresses or license plates or phone numbers and email addresses, and you post that picture to, say, your LinkedIn or your Facebook or your blog? That's generally something I try to be aware of. I won't get too much into privacy and security. That goes outside the scope of this presentation. Again, there are lots of articles out there on data security. I highly recommend going out there and seeing what else is out there in terms of data security articles. And there's also the matter of your own work and getting stolen. To the best of my knowledge, I am not aware of my own articles getting stolen yet. I gotta admit, I haven't really looked for them. I will say that if it does happen, I am going to make sure that I will go out there and I will tell the person cease and desist now. This is my work. This is my own intellectual property. Get it off of there, or else I will take action. Again, I'm going to refer back to Mike's presentation from a couple of weeks ago because he actually had that happen to him, and he talks about that in a little more detail. So again, go back and take a look at Mike's presentation recording and check that out. And there are probably a lot of other issues that I haven't thought of or forgot to include in the slide. Again, we only have an hour. As a matter of fact, how are we doing in time? Pretty all right. We got 10 minutes left. We're doing pretty good here. All right. The first time I did this presentation, I actually got a complaint. Somebody actually said to me, "Well, you talk about advancing your career by blogging, and yet you don't talk about anything about your career." The thing about blogging is a lot of the benefits that you will get out of blogging are largely passive. Like I said, I talked about my professional confidence getting better. Some of the other things that came up, they're mostly like passive items that passive benefits that come up that'll help you out in your career. Again, you're showing off what you know. You're gonna have your own portfolio saying, "Hey, I wrote about this, or I had this great thing happen to me." You can show that off to potential employers, other managers, recruiters. They'll see that stuff, and they love that stuff. Learning new things and show it off while you're doing so. Again, people like to see that you're learning something. I will freely admit that this is something I personally need to do more of, and there are a lot of things I'm going to try to learn, and I'll try to post about them as I go along. Increase business. Let's say you have your own business and you're trying to talk about what you're doing in your business. Maybe you'll pick up an audience, and they'll get more interested in what you do and the things you do. I spoke before about improving your writing skills. I think a blog is a great way for you to get better at writing. Again, if you're not a great writer, do not let that stop you. Yeah, yes, I confess I am a grammar snob. No, I will not call you out in your grammar. But increased exposure is always a good thing. I mean, it's one of the big things that you get out of a blog. Networking, your confidence builds as your blog. Like I said, benefits are largely passive. More than likely, you won't see benefits right away. It's going to take a little bit of time. When I wrote my very first article, like I said, my very first article was just a little thing about welcome to my blog. This is what it's going to be about. This is what I do. Don't expect to see a huge audience from day one. It's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. Now, my opinion, if you're trying to be more popular, to building a blog saying, "Hey, everybody, look at me," I personally believe that that's the wrong reason to build a blog. My personal feeling is that if you're building a blog about things that you do, things that you learn, things that you accomplish, the number of followers you get and the popularity of your blog will probably take care of itself. I personally do not believe that building a blog to get popular is probably the wrong reason to build a blog. But by no means am do I have my own personal blog to be popular. I mean, that's not what I do. I really could not care less about how many people read my blog. I really don't. I don't care if it's 200 people. I don't care if it's 2 people. I believe that what I write are thoughts that I have that will help other people and help myself. And I post about those things, and I think people will enjoy those things. So other resources, one of the best resources you can use to learn about blogs is, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you attend an event like SQL Saturday, I've seen lots of presentations where they talk about blogging. Like I said, these 2 gentlemen that I mentioned at the top of the presentation here are the 2 guys who got me started with blogging. Mike Hayes, if you look at his blogging rebooted presentation from a couple of weeks ago, Mike gave a great presentation. I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, I've actually gone back to the recording a couple of times myself and reviewed a lot of that stuff in there. If you go to profdev.pass.org, there is a menu link called Meeting Archive. You will be able to find his recording under that link. So I highly encourage, if you did not see his presentation, I highly encourage everybody to go out there and look at that presentation. And James Serra has this presentation that he does, and there's probably a lot of others out there. Again, too many for the slide. I found a couple of websites that looked like they're pretty good. There might be others out there. If anybody else comes up with any others, I mean, by all means, feel free to ping me and let me know. And one of the best resources for trying to figure out what to do with your own blog is take a look at other blogs, see what they look like, see what other people do, and like I said, feel free to borrow, and I hesitate to use the word, but steal, and incorporate those into your own blogs. One of the things I like to say is if you are taking ideas or borrowing ideas from other people, I like to say what you need to do is take those ideas and not try to duplicate them exactly, but make those ideas your own. Usually other ideas are great sparks for coming up with your own ideas. So a few minutes left here. I think this is my last slide. Yep, that's my last slide. So Janice, I think that's about it. Any questions online? Any of you in the room have any questions?
We have a question online. If you want to do YouTube videos, would that be good too?
Yeah, sure, by all means. If you have a YouTube account, there's nothing that says you can't link to your YouTube videos from your blog. As a matter of fact, I think that's actually a great resource for your own blog articles. So yeah, I would encourage that highly, by all means.
And then other than that, I just have some, thank yous. And John says, thank you for the encouragement, and more thank yous. So if you have any other questions from your room, that would be great.
Anybody? Anybody? The room here is thank you very much. Yeah, no, the room's actually pretty quiet. So.
We also know where you sit.
Gee, thanks. I just got a comment. It's like, we know where you live.
We have a question for Mike.
Sure.
Feed for subscribers.
Ooh.
So would that be an RSS feed? How to do it?
You want to know something? Honest answer is that's a good question. I do know some blog platforms do include RSS links. I know some blogs include RSS links. I personally have not messed around with that, so I don't have a lot of experience with creating RSS links, but I do know it's possible. But that's actually a very good question. Maybe that might be something I might look into for my own blog. So we'll see. So sorry, I can't answer that any better, but
Yeah. So what are people using for following feeds now? Like Feedly and things like that? Now that, I mean, I still miss Google Reader.
yeah, again, that's a good question. I don't have an answer to that. I do make it a point to again make sure that I send my articles to my other accounts on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on my own Facebook. So I try to get as much exposure there as I can.
How do you advertise your blog?
Again, business cards, email signatures. If you have your own website, by all means, put it on there. If you're job hunting, put it prominently at the very top of your resume, along with your address and phone numbers. Any events that you attend, make sure you mention it there. Any networking events, mention your blog. Oh, one thing I did not talk about, again, Mike touches on this a lot more. If you have your own web address, you can set that up as well. Again, I'm going to defer to Mike's presentation about that, but that's another thing you can do. I hope that answers it. I mean, there's probably a lot more that I haven't thought of yet, but
Yeah. Well, I would think that you automatically post to Twitter and your other social media would be part of that as well.
Right.
Do you have some meetups in Albany?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Go to that kasug.pass.org page. That goes right to our meetup group. Well, it doesn't go right there, but there is a link to our meetup group.
Okay. And how do you monetize a blog?
Good question. I personally don't monetize mine. That's not the point of my blog, but I'm sure there are ways to do it. That goes outside the scope of what I talk about. So I'm going to defer to other blogs, other articles about monetizing your blog. I know they're out there. I don't know where they are.
And do you need to post on a regular schedule? That's probably going to be our last question for today.
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. Short answer is no, you do not. I know people have blogs who basically posted one article in like 6 months. I try to do a minimum of one article a month. Usually the target I shoot for, and this is just me personally, I generally try to shoot for 10 articles a month. Doesn't always happen, but basically the schedule's up to you. Depends on what you do, depends on what you want to do with it. Of course, the more articles you post, the more of an audience you're probably going to build. But that's a great question. I love that question. That's a great question. So it's about 1 o'clock. Yes, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. So again, some other thank yous coming in, and I'd like to thank you as well for presenting for the professional development virtual group today.
Okay.
So thanks everybody for joining us and for your questions. And we'll have some more webinars coming up for you in the near future. And everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks for listening to me ramble. Have a good day, everybody.